stream. Back
100 times?
to another live stream.
200 times? 500 times?
Who is Jose Arteaga?
Jose Arteaga is a YouTube content creator with several channels focusing on different themes.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Thing sucks.
His main channels include travel vlogs and lifestyle content. On his travel channel, Jose Arteaga Travels.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Additionally, he runs a cooking channel and engages in other personal projects that highlight his diverse interests and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects, project, 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 projects, expertise.
Happen.
Hey, guys, how's it going? And welcome back to a very, very special episode of Cops on location out here in Mexico. Anyways, yeah, I know, right? It's already been a rocky start to the show today. I've been all over the place.
Bruh.
For those of you guys that don't know, I got in an altercation, with a giant pussycat, not too long ago. I covered that on my other channel, talking about the healthcare portion of it and all that stuff, if you care to hear about that. But in today's show, we're going to be talking about, here I, hurt my thumb, not really my thumb, but this whole area here, right? And when I got arrested, I hurt my other thumb, believe it or not. So this thumb actually got dislocated and was all horrible when I got arrested in Texas. So I guess it goes to par, it's 8 years later that this happened here. 9 years later. 9 years ago. Yeah, it was 9 years ago, literally. Kind of crazy, right? How time flies when you're having fun. A lot of things happen to me during summers. Good, bad, ugly, everything in between that you could imagine. And this is no different. So anyways, guys, so today we're going to be talking about that. Oh, where am I? There am I. Okay, there am I. So today we're going to be talking about my story. Some of you guys, the people that have been out there that have followed me for a very, very, very long time, if you guys have been listening to me since, I was in LA, California, before I moved to Mexico, after the first, year of me being in Mexico, I would talk about this a lot, because that was basically the main catalyst as they got me out here to Mexico. But with all that said, what happened? What exactly did happen? How did I end up in Mexico? What transpired from there, from point A to point B? So some of you guys only know part of the story, meaning that, I was living in Los Angeles, things were getting rough for me. Again, we're going to explain why they were rough in this episode. And basically they were about to send Dog the Bounty Hunter after my ass to come get me for payment not sent, basically. And so, I had that happening. My roommates that I was living with, were all moving back to like Alabama, where they were from, and all this other stuff. So basically, first of all, I had to find a place to live, because I was going to live out of my car or on the street. And not only did I not have enough money for moving to a new place, but on top of that, I definitely didn't have money to keep paying my extortion fee, from what happened to me out in Texas. And so that was just the reality of it. So, I did some quick research, first of all, trying to find the place. Sorry, been a long day, tired. I was gonna, trying to move to another part in the USA, trying to find, other housing in, in another part of the country, just kind of do that for, until I got back on my feet. I couldn't find any of that. So I started researching, can they extradite you, for the crime that I was, committed of, the crime that I got arrested for, the situation I was in, basically. And when I started doing research on that, I quickly found out that no, like they can't do anything to me outside of the USA. because my crime is considered nothing compared, in the rest of the world. And so for example, as I was doing my research, speaking of Dog the Bounty Hunter, I saw oh, sorry. I saw a video of a guy that basically escaped to Mexico. He actually did have crimes, okay? You know, not murder or anything like that, but, crimes, pretty heavy crimes, and long story short, he escaped to Mexico and he was living in one of the border states on Mexico, and he escaped to Mexico so that, the U.S. couldn't get to him. So I don't know what state that guy was in or whatever, but long story short, they actually sent Dog the Bounty Hunter after him. Now, I saw this in a Dog the Bounty Hunter episode. Again, I was doing research and I found it on YouTube, and basically it was a Dog the Bounty Hunter episode. And he went to go get this guy, and this guy just happened to be in Mexico. And so when he went out to Mexico, to go, go and arrest the guy. So basically, he went to Mexico, he found the guy, and then he went to arrest the guy. And as soon as he went to arrest the guy, well, guess what? The guy and his family called the cops. Okay. And when they called the Mexican cops went and, stopped Dog the Bounty Hunter from what he was doing. Dog explained to himself what he was doing, and the Mexican cops is like, yeah, you can't do that here. That's kidnapping. You are, you have a, whatever. He was just basically going through, the Mexican cop was telling Dog the Bounty Hunter all the things that he did wrong. And so, long story short, I was like, yeah, whatever, bro. You know what I mean? He let the guy loose and they basically deported Dog the Bounty Hunter. So when I saw that, and I saw that my crime was actually a petty crime compared to what that guy was, in trouble for, I was like, all right, I gotta go. I can't find a place to live in the USA. No matter where I go to, they're gonna come after me because what happened was that, like, basically they were making things difficult for me to pay them, and then basically, it was difficult for me to pay them because I wasn't coming up with the money. And so basically, they're making it difficult for me to pay them when I had the money. Then eventually I didn't have the money, and then they made it easy for me. And then again, it was just one thing after the other. So long story short, yeah, at that point, I wasn't in a position to pay, for my extortion, for my kidnapping fee. So I said, you know what? I'm going to Mexico. And I went to Merida. And then that's where the whole adventure started. While I was in Mexico, and I was hiding from them, not letting them know where I was. Eventually, they found out I was in Mexico because of my dumb ass. You know what I mean? Like, I called them from a Mexican phone. I don't know what happened. But they found out I was in Mexico. And when they found out, they were furious because they knew they couldn't do anything. And then at that point, well, they found their quick resolution, and I was able to fix everything quickly. But up until then, I was up shit's creek. So what happened to me? What was the arrest? I know that's what most of you guys are here for. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So if you guys have listened to me, watch my previous shows, watch my previous episodes. Hey, how's it going, Luce? Oh, sorry about that. Well, hopefully you can catch it later. I had to go a little late today because, again, had a medical issue I talk about on the other channel. But anyway, so where was I? What was I saying? Okay, yeah. So I was living in Seattle, okay? And you guys know my story of when I was living in Seattle. Again, I've talked about it on this channel, in story time. You can just sift through, okay? Again, just go to my channel. All right, just sift through where it says live. You see up there, live? Click on live, and you'll find it. It's somewhere here. I don't know where. I think it was one of the earlier. There you go. See, the time I lived in Seattle. There you go. Okay, you can click on that. All right, and you'll find out. Oh, the time I worked at a strip club. Time I was a chef. Time I worked at a zoo. Time I lived in a boat in the desert. All kinds of things. Okay, so anyways, all right, let's get back to the show here. So, when so you guys know I was living in Seattle. And during my time in Seattle, one of the things that I love to do, like a lot of Americans, is like we love to drive and I love to take road trips. And one of the things that I never got to do, being a cook, being a chef, working the life that I worked, once upon a time, was I never got the vacation to travel or see anything. So when I was in Seattle, I had more time and I had money. So again, what did I do? Well, I traveled whenever I could. So I was always, whether I flew places or I drove places, whatever, I did that. Once eventually my time in Seattle came to an end and I had to leave, well, I really had nowhere to go. And I just did not feel comfortable with like moving to like LA or moving to anywhere. I had a lot of friends in LA, and I don't want to move to like LA and pay like crazy prices, for rent and all kinds of things. And so I don't want to be in that. I had friends, and family in Miami. I didn't want to go back to Miami. I didn't want to stay in Seattle. I couldn't find anywhere to go, and I didn't feel like just picking a random spot anywhere. What I wanted to do was I wanted to explore the USA. So once I left Seattle, basically, I started just to drive around and live out of hotels. Now, when I first started doing the trip, I had a friend of mine that told me, "Hey, I got a guy that's renting a place in Vegas." And I'm like, I don't want to stay in Vegas and blah blah blah. And he goes, "No, no, I think you'll like this. It's basically you'll be living on a boat on Lake. What lake was it? Which is a lake that's right by the Hoover Dam? Lake Mead? Is it Lake Mead? Where's this Vegas? What is it? Anyways, this here. It's yeah, Lake Mead. Okay, Lake Mead. Okay, so I was living here. And by the way, I did a video on that, so you can watch that again. It's on my channel. Look, it's somewhere. Where is it? Living on a boat in the middle of the desert. See, so you guys can watch that. All right, right on top of my head there. All right. So, anywho's, so I was living out here, like literally, like here. Nothing there. I was living out there. Okay. And that was my home base. And I thought, okay, this is unique enough. I'm far away from Vegas. And I was just out there in the middle of the desert, very new experience. That's what I was all about. After I broke from the matrix, it was all about living life and, doing all kinds of things. So that was one of the things I was very open to. Yeah, I'll live in a boat in the desert. That's great. That sounds wonderful. Now, I was living there. That was just like my home base. So that way I was only paying for hotels and stuff like that when I was traveling. Because one thing about traveling is that, yeah, sure, it's fun at first. But once you start doing it for a long time, man, it gets exhausting very quickly. It's not for everybody. So whatever. I needed a home base, so that way I could stay somewhere and then just go travel, come back, relax, go travel, whatever. And I was just traveling with my car. I wanted to see the USA. So, a lot of times, where would I go? You know what I mean? Like, well, the whole trip to Los Angeles wasn't really that long, so I really didn't go out there that much. I was already pretty familiar, with the whole West Coast, for because I was living there for years, so I kind of, would drive up and down and fly, and I kind of knew the area. I knew the East Coast pretty well as well, but I just didn't know the rest of America. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'm pretty, I'm here in Vegas. What I can do is that I can drive, across the country, just come back. I would drive to Chicago and come back. I would drive to Miami, and I always take different highways every time, go visit my family in Miami, visit them, come back, take a different route. So, many times I would so I would drive all the way up, I would leave Miami and I would drive north, and then I would just pick one of the highways, that go west, and I would just go west. So I've been in Kansas, I've been in many of these places. I've never been to like North Dakota, Montana, Minnesota. I haven't been there, but I've been just about everywhere else. I haven't been to Maine or Alaska. Whatever. But I've been to many places, right? And a lot of times it was just driving across. Been through Tennessee, Louisiana, the South many, many times as a. But anyways, with that said, whatever. Okay, so one day on one of my trips, okay, I was just, visiting Miami. I don't know what it was for. It was some family event. I don't know. I forgot. But I was just visiting Miami. And so I was just driving. I was planning my trip. And so I was like, all right, I kind of have to be there by a certain date. So let me just, let me not, not go crazy, taking a major trip. Let me just try to go on a direct shot. Let's see what new road, new path I haven't been on. So, what the path that I take? I took, where was it? I took the path that I went. I was like, all right, I left Vegas and I went up through, where did I go? Because I left, oh yeah, Amarillo. That's okay. So I went up north. Okay. Yeah, so I went through Utah. Yeah, that's right. Because I have, friends and family in Utah as well. So I went through there. Then I came through Colorado. Okay. And then from Colorado, okay, from Colorado, I won't say Denver, I started making my way south because I found the road. There was a highway I forgot what this one. Yeah, this one right here. This highway right here, which is Highway 260, 287. I was like, oh, I haven't taken 287 yet before, And so I was like, all right, somehow I don't know how I forgot how, but I was like, as I'm leaving Colorado, boop, 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 coming through here, I will get to Amarillo, and I don't think I went to Amarillo. Yeah, I never been to Amarillo before. I don't think I did. So I went to Amarillo, or I think I went to Albuquerque, then Amarillo. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, but that was my path, right? I was coming from Colorado, and I think I went to Albuquerque, then Amarillo, and then so I was like, okay, what from Amarillo? Where can I go? I've already been down south here, So I was like, I've already taken, I-10, I've already, been to San Antonio. I've already been through this, all right. So I was like, all right, what do I, Texas is big. What do I not know? So I was like, all right, Amarillo, and I saw there was a road, a highway that took you from Amarillo to Dallas, straight shot. I'm like, oh, great. I've never been to Dallas either. This will be good. I can go from here. So my stop was here. I'm pretty sure I stopped here, to sleep, I think, or Albuquerque. Forgot. Whatever. Anyways, I think it was Amarillo. Anyways, and then from there, it was just turning because Texas is big. So I think I stayed in Amarillo, and then from Amarillo, I was just going to go all the way, and I don't know where, but I think I was going to go through, I think to Shreveport, and then make my way down south, you know what I mean? Or maybe stay up there. I don't know. I would go with the flow. But I've already been through down here a billion times, through the New Orleans, through I-10. So I was like, yeah, I was going to go this way. I think that was my path. I don't know because I got derailed, okay? Where did it get derailed? Well, when I left Amarillo and I was coming through Childress, okay? So it was somewhere around, here, I think. Somewhere around there. Literally, this is where I got stopped. Like right around here. Somewhere around here. I don't know the exact spot, but this is what it looked like. It was this. Okay? And it was just in the middle of nowhere. Nothing. No town. No nothing. And so long story short, some bum fuck, stupid ass, deputy sheriff, okay, that was out here in the boonies. So, I found this out later, what they did, okay, but, so anyway, some boonie, some deputy chef, out here was out here in the boonies, was basically looking for easy targets. So, what was an easy target to them? An out of state tag. So my tag was from Washington State, all the way from Seattle. I was like way up there. So obviously I was coming through. They're like, ah, great. And they know weed. Remember, weed is super illegal in Texas. And so they're like, great, let's go. Boop. So long story short, I was heading towards Childress, and the guy was heading in the other direction. And the speed limit in Texas is like 80 miles per hour, 70. So whatever. I was in cruise control. I'm not stupid. I'm just going the speed limit or under, the speed limit. And so, long story short, the guy, sees me coming and then basically does a U-turn, gets behind me, and to pull me over. I think, what the hell? Whatever. Anyway, so I get pulled over somewhere again, outside of town. So I get pulled over somewhere outside of town, and the guy's like, do you know why I pulled you over? And like, I know the script. I'm like, no, I don't. How can I help you? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, because when I was coming in your direction, I noticed that your tire went over the yellow line. I'm like, oh, you noticed that at 80 miles per hour? Like, man, you got some really good eyesight, bro. I didn't say that. But that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, okay, no, I didn't know that, whatever. He goes, okay, whatever, da 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 da. I'm going to give you a warning. All right. I'm like, all right, great, whatever. And he goes, can you step out of the car? And I'm like, no, no. What do you want me to step out of the car? You just said what I did, and you're going to give me a warning? What do you need me to step out of the car? And he's like, no, because, out here in Texas, there's like a whole thing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, already like, And, I have my window cracked a little bit. I'm kind of going through the whole protocol. I know what's up. I'm not trying to, whatever. Long story short, man, the guy, had my papers, my everything, because, he came off as nice and the warning and the whole thing. So I was like, all right, whatever, man. I got nothing to hide, So, all right. So I get out of the car. And as I get out of the car, he's just doing the whole thing, whatever, and he gives, we're talking, whatever, no big deal, where I'm from, whatever, just bullshit, nothing major. So then he's like, he gives me the warning. And he goes, gives me the warning. I'm like, here you go, sir. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Again, be careful out there, blah, 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 whatever. All right, great, thanks. So I take the warning. And I'm walking towards my car. but we're doing this like behind my car, somewhere, whatever, somewhere in the area there. So anyway, so I'm walking towards my car. I'm literally getting in my car, opening the door to get in my car, and he goes, "Hey, hey, 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 hold on a second. Before you go, I gotta search your car." And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir? The hell do you mean search my car?" You know what I mean? Like, you already gave me a ticket. A warning. You already gave me I go, "Look, man, I know you're new here. I know you're a deputy. All right. But how it works is that, in order for you to have even suggested to search my car, you needed to have done that before you gave me this. You gave me this already. Okay. You gave me a warning. Therefore, transaction over. Stop over. We're done here. We're done." So if you all of a sudden now do anything beyond this, this is another transaction. And now we go to court. I'm just going to win this no matter what the hell happens. Okay? Because you should have done this beforehand. You literally let me go. And the judge is going to be like, "Well, wait a minute. If you had a suspicion of whatever you're going to tell the judge, you had a suspicion of blah, 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 blah. Listen, man, it's not going to work because you should have done it before you even gave me this. The fact that you gave me this and let me go, and then you change your mind as I'm about to leave, no, that's not how it works, man." And then he's like, "Oh, shit." He knew immediately. He was like, "Oh, I'm fucked." But he was already too deep in. And he goes, and then I see him about to grab his gun and go, "Hey, what are you doing? Why are you grabbing your gun? This is not you gave me a warning for something. What are you doing here? What are we doing? What are we doing? Can you relax for a second? You can call your supervisor, man. I got all the time in the world, bro. I want to get this straightened out. The last thing I want is for any of us to get in trouble." He's like, "No, no, no, listen, listen, listen." I'm like, "Hey, listen, bro. Look, I got my hands up. I'm no threat to you. Relax. Okay? I'm just telling you my rights. I'm telling you how it is. Okay? I just don't want you to get in trouble. All right? There's nothing to do with me. You already saw I'm clean. Right? What do you want to search my car?" Again, that's not my question to even ask. It's up to you. You do whatever you want. All right? But I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. So what are we doing here? All right, whatever. And finally, he's like, all right. I'm, calls his supervisor, whatever. I think at that point, whatever, because then cops started to show up. All of a sudden, just like you see here in the thumbnail. Well, you can saw where did I put it here? Sorry, you got things everywhere here. Yeah, but just like you can see here, yeah, there was like only way more cops. Okay, all of a sudden. So all of a sudden, I was like, what the, and guns drawn and the whole thing, and I'm like, what the hell? What are we doing here? You guys pulled me over for nothing here. You gave me already a warning. What the hell's going on? Where you guys? The hell? And so eventually, like the captain, the fucking, the boss deputy, sheriff shows up. And he's like, "Hey, man. Hey, guys, relax. He tells everybody to relax, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, he's like, "Hey, man, what's the problem here? What's going on? What's whatever?" You go, and I'm like, "I don't know. What do you mean? What's going on? You tell me." And I explained to him the whole situation. And he's like, "Oh, I see. And then he goes, before, and he arrests me after I told him the story. And he fucking arrests me, in that scuffle. I'm not going to fight with a cop, And so, like, he's in that, and especially when they already have the guns drawn. And guys, again, I was in the middle of fucking nowhere. Look at that. I was there. The fuck, man? Like, nothing. Nothing. Again, I showed you what it looked like, all right? I'll show you again. Okay? I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere. They disappear people. I'm from the big city, man. They disappear people in places like this. All right? And they'll never find your ass ever again. All right, this is, hold on, this is the rule. You know what I mean? That's what happened to me. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, so the guy arrests me. And I'm like, "What'd you arrest me for?" He goes, I'm arresting you for because you're not answering my questions." And I'm like, "What questions? What questions have you asked me?" He goes, "Oh no," he goes, "No, not question." He goes, "No, for impeding on the for not letting us open your car." And I'm like, "But bro, you already know what you're doing here." Da, 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 da. So if you guys are just corrupt or whatever, you might as well just let me know. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing here. You know what I mean? Like, this is all being recorded. I had a dash cam. It's like, this is all being taken to Facebook. It's all live. This is all being recorded right now. Even if you delete the information on the camera, It's up in the cloud. I know you don't know what that is, but it's up there. Trust me. All right. You can't delete that. So what are we doing here? What the hell's going on here? All right. And yeah, long story short, yeah, no, he's all because in Texas, we have a law and it says that we can open your car and do whatever that we want at any time and this and that and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not from here, I'm not familiar with any of that. All that sounds like constitutional like you're breaking the Constitution like 100 ways, but hey, if you say so, well, I'm not going to argue with you. You already arrested me. What the hell am I going to do? Da, 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 da. And then, yeah, that's it. They proceeded to go on and search my car. I had weed. I had all kinds of things in there, but that's not what I got charged for. That's right. That's not what I got charged for. So I got charged for, I can't show you the paperwork, unfortunately, but I got charged for resisting arrest. And then the second charge is that I had a controlled substance. Oh, what was a controlled substance? Oh, it was literally some cookies that my friend baked me. And they were just actually cookies. I wish they were edibles, but no, they just said that they were whatever. Now, of course, if they're going to say that, they got to test those cookies to make sure there's something in there. So they did. There were cookies. There was nothing. So look, long story short, that's why at the end of the day, by the time I moved to Mexico, I called their bluff. And I told them to go F themselves, They had to give me a pre-trial diversion. And long story short, I was able to get out scot-free without ever stepping in Texas ever again or ever stepping in a Texas courthouse or anything like that. Because, habeas corpus, you already know, they can disappear your ass and put you in the fucking system like that. I was this close. How was I able to get out? So what happened was that, like, after I got arrested, they searched my car. They did the whole thing, whatever. And I was, by the way, I'm sitting in the car, arrested, and I'm looking, I can see through, I'm like turned around. I can see what they're doing. So I see them and I see them pulling out my bags of weed. But my bags of weed, my personal use bags of weed, because, I smoke, especially back then a lot. So my own personal bags of weed, and they just like, they were like, this is nothing. We want a felony. We want to really get after this guy. We really want to whatever, Yeah, because I did not make it easy on them, all right? For them to arrest me and all this shit. So long story short, eventually, once I got released and I got the actual paperwork of what happened, yeah, that's when I found that it was controlled substance. I'm like, controlled substance? Well, what the fuck? The cookies. Like, bro, really? These idiots? So long story short, yeah, that's why they couldn't get, they had to drop the case. They had to drop everything. I exhausted them by moving to Mexico. Because otherwise, if I was in the USA, they would just keep forcing me to keep paying and paying and paying to keep it in the courts and keep it in the courts and keep it in the courts. But when I went to Mexico, they're like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm never coming back. You can't do shit to me. I know all you want is my motherfucking money. All I want is my motherfucking freedom. So are you gonna sell me my freedom back or what? What do you mean? You know what I mean. Give me my fucking pre-trial diversion like you fucking said you would. All right? Meaning, all this is not null and void. Because everything you guys did was fucking, against the law and against the Constitution. And what you're doing is that you got me in a kangaroo court because it's again, let me remind you guys where I'm at. I'm in small town, nowhere, Childress, Texas, population, let's see, population of what? Like 5,700 people. Okay, nobody there. All right, so 5,000 people. Look at the other little, this is like the next little town over, Like, what does this say? Population of what? 121? 121 people? Oh, look at this. Worst speed trap cities in North America. So anyways, look, man, long story short, okay? These people, the only income that they have is, again, you read it there on fucking Wikipedia. So, by the way, avoid 287 in Texas at all cost. Because again, it's on Wikipedia for crying out loud. This is the worst, speed trap area in the world. So basically, the area starts over here from the East Line area, okay, all the way down basically to close to Dallas. So basically this whole area, which is like many hours of a drive to get to, anyways. And so imagine when I finally got released and I'm like white knuckling it through that whole area, hoping I don't get fucking pulled over again. Because there was no other way out. I was already too scared to, where the fuck am I going to go? In the cow pasture? Fuck, man. So I was just like white knuckling all the way after I got to fucking Dallas. By the time I got to fucking Dallas, I was like, thank God. I got to Louisiana. I was like, thank God. Yeah, Louisiana, Deliverance, all right? Yeah, I felt safer there. By the way, I'm from Florida, bro. Once they fucking knew I was from Florida, man, they really fucking hated my ass, bro. So yeah, I mean, I'm not even done with the story, bro. You know, we haven't even started the story. We literally haven't even started the story. All right, so eventually, those motherfuckers right here in Childress, Texas, okay, they fucking arrested my ass. And again, their only form of fucking income in that area is doing that to all kinds of people. During my time there, I was so okay. They arrested me and they took all my shit away, you know, all my stuff away. They gave me no access to anything, and I was in jail for 3 days with no phone call, no access to anything, nothing. I was just disappeared for 3 days. That's it, gone. So, in my time there, I saw people. There was a mom and a daughter. Okay, and basically the mom had legal CBD oil or some whatever because she was blind, and they arrested the blind mom and the daughter. And again, you know, they were able to get released and shit like that. But I mean, because they weren't doing anything illegal, they were just being unlawfully arrested. And you know, I saw an actual drug dealer get arrested. You know, this guy that was actually running drugs from point A to point B, and he got arrested. They all knew him there. You know, basically he was in jail for like 3 hours. Okay, and he got out of jail. Okay, and he just paid the fee, and he was out, in and out. Now, I had the money to get out too, but since I was such a fucking asshole to them because they were assholes to me, you know, like I said, I went down, you know, I went down with the fight. Yeah, that's why they fucking treated me like shit. Now, they couldn't keep me in there longer than 3 days because then, you know, now it's like a missing persons case and shit. So then at that point, they gave me access to my wallet. And thank God, you know, I had my American Express. Again, never leave home without it, god damn it. So I had my American Express. And thank God for my fucking American Express because I gave it to them. Again, with my handcuffs, I gave it to them. And they fucking went clunk, clunk. You know, no questions asked. Approved. That's it. They took the handcuffs off. And then I proceeded to go through all my paperwork and all my bullshit to get out of there. Fucking nuts, right? So when I live in Mexico, and so when people tell me, oh, they're going to kidnap you and they're going to do that. Listen, man, they fucking done that to me in the USA. The fuck out of here. At least the fucking people in Mexico take cash. Shit, man. Anyways, whatever, bro. You know, and fucking over there, they'll fucking say, hey, where'd you get that cash? And then they're gonna, you know, confiscate that cash, and then you still gotta come up with the money. Anyways, so yeah, so I was in jail for so anyways, I went kicking and screaming into the fucking jail. You know what I mean? Like, you know, by the time that I was in the jail and, you know, I had to get in my jumpsuit and things like that, I was like, whatever, bro. I was gangster mode. I was like, hey, you know, hey, can you get my phone? Can you take a picture of me? You know, I was telling the guy that was taking the pictures, you know, for my mugshot. I'm like, hey, can you take a picture of me? Because I want to save it for later. He's like, oh, man, I wish I could. I can't. Yeah. And then, hey, shut up. Hey, don't fucking listen. Hey, don't talk to him. You know, like that. So you know, I was trying to make friends, but they were just fucking jerks because of you know what I made them go through in order for them to arrest me and shit. Again, unlawfully, but whatever. So they just fucking threw me in the fucking jail, and it's like, man, fuck you guys, I fucking hey, I'm gonna get my fucking lawyer, I'm gonna fucking sue you guys. You know, just going through all that shit, and eventually, you know, I just had somebody tap me on my shoulder, and it was like some giant fucking behemoth of a man. I'm in jail. And he's like, hey, man, relax. Don't worry about it. You're here. You know, there's nothing you can do. You know, like, ah, man, fuck these. And then long story short, I got surrounded by everybody there. And they're like, man, relax, man. It's all right. You know, we're already in jail. What the fuck are we going to do? We all hate them. You know, anyways, but long story short, you know, they started talking to me. And they're like, here, man, calm down. Look, this is what happened. You know, there was a couple guys that were from the town in jail. And they're like, look, bro, it's just that, you know, you don't know about 287. You don't know about the speech. I'm like, no, bro, I never been through here. The fuck do I know? What the fuck? They're all fucking cracking the fuck up. You know, I'm going full Cuban. And like, you know, what the fuck do I know about fucking fuck Egypt? You know, whatever, you know. You know, I'm in the middle of fucking nowhere. Anyways, and they're like, you know, cracking the fuck up. And so they're like, yeah. And so, yeah, they told me, yeah, there's like a famous speed trap, you know, beep, 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 beep. And yeah, so that, you know, once they told me what that place was, you know, that place was infamous for doing that. like I said, while I was there, they literally arrested a blind mom and her daughter. I don't even know. The daughter was driving. She was not blind, just the mom. But anyways, that's fucking nuts. You know what I mean? So, and then, obviously I hear stories of all these people, always getting arrested, everybody going through there. And so they told me, they go, yeah, so what happens is that they go, oh, I bet you came from Colorado, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, how the fuck did you know? And they're like, yeah, well, because it's a direct shot. There's like some road. Because remember, I just taking the scenic route. But yeah, long story short, a lot of people, they come through Denver or they go to Denver, I think maybe to get weed or get medicine, weed medicine, whatever. But anyway, so they go up there and back and forth. So long story short, it's a road that is just traversed a lot by people on the West Coast for some reason. So maybe, like, for example, if you're coming from Seattle, you could diagonally come through there. You're coming from Denver, you're coming through there. And all these places have legal weed. And where do they not have legal weed? Texas. So basically, if they see you with a Washington tag, California tag, what is it, Denver, what is it, Colorado tag, forget it. You're toast. They got you. So they're just going to pull you over for that and then forget about it, So, so it's like that 287 that just runs all the way down to Dallas. So I had no idea. So anyways, they gave me the lowdown. They gave me the whatever. I made friends, with all the inmates in there. We were sharing stories, like, hey, have you ever been to jail before? I'm like, yeah, I'm from Miami, bro. What do you think, So I was telling him fucking everything, and yeah, I made some really good friends in there. I wish I had my phone because I would, could have. Oh, actually, yeah, a couple of them actually did give me their number, and I was able to keep their number. And because there was this one, oh yeah, man, I can't believe I'm actually remembering all this shit now. Yeah, so this one guy. He was just a black guy, a regular guy, and he was on his way back home to Louisiana. I'm pretty sure Shreveport, Louisiana, and he was just on his way home. And he got arrested, and for him it was just like a racist thing, So they freaking arrested him, did the same thing as me. But when the 3 days came to make a phone call, make a whatever, he didn't have anything. He didn't have no money, no nothing, and so he was already in there for like a few months. And I was like, bro, you kidding me right now? And he's like, yeah, bro, if you can you, when you get out, can you call this number? And I remember, yeah, when I got out, out of Texas, I went sure, out of fucking Texas. Yeah, I called the number and I put him and I told, oh my God, no way. Is that where Billy is? I forgot the guy's name. Is that where Billy is? Like, yeah, he's in jail in fucking Childress, Texas. I just got out of there. Like, oh my God, that's so crazy. No way. We thought he was dead. We thought he was this. We thought he was like, no, whatever. And so, yeah. So I was able to put him in contact with the family member, and they were able to get him out. But yeah, you know what I mean? Long story short, that guy was in jail for months. Nobody knew anything. It's fucking nuts, man. And again, you go to my other channel, watch the video I did on healthcare today, because I'm in Mexico and I had a situation and I was just so floored by how amazing the medical care is in Mexico, and just coming from the USA and just, well, not having medical care. So it's just crazy as me. It's like, when people ask me, it's like, oh, what do I live in the USA? Why am I there? Blah, 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 all these other things. And I'm like, bro, what are you kidding me? Are you nuts? Like, why would I ever want to go back to the USA? It's like one horror story after another of life in the USA. So, yes, hold on a second. This thing froze. Give me a second. So yeah, no, it's just horrible, man. So you got it? I think we fixed it. Okay. So, but yeah, it was just a horrible story. Oh, hold on a second. I think there's somebody out there waiting for me. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna put some music on. I'll be back in 1 second.
Going
hold on.
all
I need
in
a
on
second break.
something must take a lot of conviction.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
How many chairs are you sitting on right now? How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair? You put on one pair of glasses, you've got one pair of AirPods, you're looking at me through one screen. That's a one microphone. Like, you trust it? Is that conviction? Is that conviction? How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair?
One.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now? If you're a rational individual, Do you use, when you use knives, do you have copper knives, wooden knives, steel knives, aluminum knives, rubber band knives, diamond knives, because you're afraid to commit to the right knife? It's a tool. Seems kind of scary. Why don't you diversify? Why don't you use 10 microphones? The point really is, things in your life, did you drive in 10 cars at the same time or one car at one time? Do you drive down one street? Aren't you afraid that you're driving down one street? Do you think a different way? You know? So my point really is, how many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair?
One.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
I'm back. All right. Where were we? Where was I? Where did I leave off in the story? By the way, it's just that this guy, he's like, hey, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm usually done streaming by now. He's like, I'll be back tomorrow because I ordered these. He made these. He's a baker and he makes all kinds of, things. These are just lard cookies. These are like salt, not salty, but they're not sweet, but they're, like crackers, cookies. Lard, flour, a little salt, water. Man, so good, so good. And I grew up eating these. You can't find these anywhere in the USA, living in LA, whatever. But then I'm back here. I was like, oh yeah, they make them out here. They make all kinds of sweets. I'm trying to be on a diet, but I kind of ordered these already. And these are more for Christian. I just brought them so I can show you guys. All right, $1 each, homemade. But yeah, the guy was honking out there, and he's like waiting for me. He was like, oh, I had to go run out and get him real quick. So my apologies. But again, another benefit of living here, so. Yeah, that's right. Lou says, I moved to Mexico to escape the law. That's right. Oh yeah, how funny, right? I get more cookies. See, look at that. They arrested me for cookies. See, out here, I'm never going to get arrested for cookies, all right? And it's funny. Look, out here in Mexico, even if I were, like, let's say, steal these cookies, okay, from a store, okay, literally what's going to happen, okay? What would happen if I steal these cookies from a store, okay? Most likely I'll get caught, even by the cop, get caught, and literally brought by the ear back to the store to, hey, get back those cookies, and then they get a kick in the ass to not do it again. Okay, now, you do something severe, it was going to go a little bit, probably get arrested or whatever, but it's spend the night in jail. But yeah, no, it's a different world out here, man. In the USA, you steal cookies for hunger for whatever reason. Oh, you're dead. You're doing time. You're doing time. You're doing time. You want to do the crime, you don't do the time or something like that. Or something like that, right? Yeah, sorry about that. I'm all over the place. But yeah, so with that said, I forgot what I was saying. So yeah, I made friends with the people in the jail. What is it, the prisoners in the jail. I saw so many things while I was there. They told me about the speed trap. Right now, when we were looking at the Wikipedia, I cannot believe it's on Wikipedia. That's how bad that area is. Now, what happened was that after I left Texas, after that situation happened, I went straight to Miami, did my family thing, blah, blah, blah. But, at that point, my life was ruined. I had to figure out what the hell was I going to do because, like, now it's like, hey, I got to take care of this or it's going to turn into a really big problem. So anyways, I went back to where I was in Vegas, where I had my stuff. And guess what? I got cleaned out. For some odd reason, somebody, went to where I was and cleaned me out. So long story short, I was on my way to Miami. Okay, this 9 years ago, literally. I was on my way to Miami. When I went through Texas, when they were looking through my stuff, they have my phone, they have my everything, so God knows what they did, and they had access to my stuff and my information. And yeah, long story short, they wiped me out. Somebody wiped me out. They all wiped me out. So yeah, but like I said, by the time I made it to Miami, spent some time there, and then made it all the way back, and then went back to nothing because everything was just wiped out. I was like, oh, now I'm at zero. Thank God I have Bitcoin. Again, people always wonder about crypto. Crypto saved my life multiple multiple times. Okay. And, again, we'll talk about that in another episode going forward. All right. But yeah, crypto, yeah, saved my life multiple times. That was one of the times, the first time actually it saved my life. And, but if it wasn't for that, I mean, oh my God, it would have been even more disastrous. But because I still had some crypto and this happened in 2017 before that bull run that back then, I was able to, oh man, survive and pay off a lot of the bills. So, okay, what the thing is that, like, after I got released from Texas, what they wanted is that they wanted me to come back to Texas. They wanted me to stand in front of a judge, and they wanted me to put me through the ringer and go through this thing and go through that and and hire one of their lawyers because I couldn't bring somebody from outside and all this other stuff. And again, they were all in cahoots. They all worked together. The judge, the cops, the bond lady, the lawyers, everybody. So I was like, no, I know my rights, and I know my rights. I'm an American citizen. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Florida. Again, people that really dig deep. I know on this channel we go deep, but long story short, they can't just, if I was born in Texas, it's a different story, but that's not their story, so I'm not born in Texas, so they don't have that much jurisdiction over me. So the real jurisdiction, when I'm in Texas is federal for me. So I know my federal rights, okay? And so with that said, I was like, okay, well, they want me to show up to court. Well, I don't have to technically show up to court, meaning me, human Jose, does not have to show up. What I can do is that I can have a straw man. Okay, the same straw man that they use for many things, right? I can use my straw man too. So use that straw man as a proxy to represent me in court. Now, what happens is that when there is a straw man or a proxy, instead of the human entity, instead of you, the corporate entity, this, the number that you are, instead of you showing up to court, well, they can't really do nothing to the entity that showed up. So again, I technically, legally, again, they asked me to show up in court. I physically, Jose, me, did not show up in court, but what I could legally send is a proxy in my place. Now, they legally cannot charge that proxy with anything, correct? So they couldn't, they didn't. And so during that time, it gave time, we're going back and forth playing, not chicken, we're just playing hot potato. Hot potato. Now, most of the time in these cases, the state of Texas usually always wins because they can play hot potato till infinity and beyond. And eventually, it gets to a point where they're like, hey, we're not playing hot potato anymore. We're sending Dog the Bounty Hunter after you, no matter where the hell you are. Unless you're in Mexico. So when I was in Mexico, well, now I won the game of hot potato. And at the end of the day, all they wanted, right, was some sort of closure to their thing. Whether they put me in jail, whether they put me through the system, so I can pay more and more and more, through other, hey, you're going to be on a special program, a drug this, a da-da-da, you got to pay this, you got to pay every month, and like, whatever. So they either put me in the system one way or the other, fine me, again, give me exorbitant fines without, they'll probably get my wages garnished or who knows how they're going to get their money. But, they had like all these things that they can kind of do to me, but I had to be there for them to do it. And if they had to go and send somebody to physically grab me illegally and bring me back over there to illegally stand in front of a judge, then they would do so. But they can't do it if I'm in Mexico. And at the end of the day, they can't just leave that case open like that. And, at the end of the day, they want their money. They want some sort of money. So that's how they eventually, when I was in Mexico, they had no choice. But at that point, they had to play ball and they had to find a resolution. And so they just said, okay, this is how it works. You know what I mean? This is what you want. You want your pre-trial diversion, which basically is a dismissal of the case. So you want this and we want money. And I had to come up with the money, and I gave them the money. They gave me my dismissal, and that's it. We're done. Plus, things like statute of limitations has already passed, over 7 years since I haven't been there. So there's all these other things. Now, am I going to Texas anytime soon? No. Of course, I'm avoiding the whole country as a plague. But that's another story of another day. But that was the only way I was really able to get it resolved quickly, by not by them, by not giving them any other choice. Because if I was in any other state, just like I was in California, they could keep dragging it forever. And the longer they drag it, the more money is going to cost me as well, because I got to pay, to go to court, and whether it's a proxy or not, you know what I mean? Because, well, somebody has to represent that proxy, right? So I hired a lawyer to do that. Now, how was I able to look? Not only, first of all, I already knew what I had to do, but it wasn't until when I was in Los Angeles and I was Uber driving, and I became friends with one of my Uber rides. He was a lawyer. He was a criminal attorney in California, in Los Angeles. I was like, oh, well, wow, my luck. And we hit it off immediately. And he's like, hey, man, I don't like calling Ubers. I prefer a personal driver. Would you like to be my personal driver? And so you were like, yeah, we worked out to an agreement, and I became his personal driver. I still did Uber, but I was his personal driver. And he was awesome. He was a great guy. And long story short, eventually as we became friends, I told him my situation. He's like, oh, really? And he told me, yeah, no, you're doing everything correct. You're on point, man. You know a lot. I was like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, anyways, that was also really cool, have an actual, real criminal attorney tell me, I was on point. But anyways, he also told me, he goes, I know the area, and that area is fucking horrible. In fact, it's so horrible. Many years ago, like over a decade ago, my son, he plays in a band, and they were on tour, and basically they were going through that area, and the same exact thing happened to them. And they had to go through the same exact thing as you. And even me, being a criminal attorney, doing exactly what you're doing, it took years and years. And then we actually, obviously, tried to sue them and tried to, get some No, that didn't happen. And when I heard that from him, I was like, man, forget about it. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to get this thing resolved. Anyways, now, this is something I haven't really told anybody, I don't think, but I'm going to tell you guys now. So the real 100% reason why I came to Mexico was because of him. And by the way, he was really upset and sad that I left for Mexico, but he totally understood. But this is what happened. When I got that final notice from Texas, saying, hey, we're going to come and send Dog the Bounty Hunter. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do all these fucking things to you. And basically, I told him what's going on. He goes, oh, this is not good. This is no bueno. And I go to him, what would you do if I were you? And you know what he fucking told me straight up? He goes, as much as it pains me to fucking tell this to you, because the last thing I want you to do is leave. Yeah, leave the country. That's the only option you got right now. And I'm like, bro, you gotta be fucking kidding me. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, again, the last thing I want is for you to leave. And if you stay, trust me, I got your back. But if I were you right now, yeah, that's what I would do. And so I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? That was like the last thing I needed to hear. I mean, meaning the last pin to drop. As soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, I guess I really don't have a choice at this point. You know what I mean? It's not even about like, oh, I don't want to live on the street. No, man, it's beyond that. It's like, I don't want to be in fucking jail for some bullshit for a long time for some bullshit. So I was like, no. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, all right, man, if you say so. Anyways, long story short, yeah, that's what I did. And the rest is history. How fucking crazy is that? How fucking nuts is all that? I mean, yeah, man, it still fucking hurts, man, because it's like, when a lot of people always talk about and they yell at me and they get angry at me. It's like, oh, what do you hate the USA? Oh, why do you say the USA doesn't have freedom? Oh, what? It's like, man, shut the fuck up, man. You've never been in the system. Nothing's ever fucking happened to you, obviously. Or maybe you're just a big, or bootlicker. I don't know what. But it's like, I mean, I even got bootlicker friends of mine that stopped being bootlickers after they got the boot shoved up their ass with people that he thought were friends of theirs, and other people out there. Sorry, I don't mean to put anyone out there. Love you guys, appreciate you guys, but it's happened. It's happened in Miami. It's happened to other friends that I know. It's just happened, dog. You know what I mean? It's like, and so once it happens to you, I never been friends with no cops. I've always been on the other side, and yeah, man. Yeah, to me, it's just sad, man. The whole fucking thing is sad. Just like when I was talking about, again, on my other channel, when we were talking about my hand, my injury that I got, and I went to the Mexican free healthcare system, and how I was just astonished. I'm still like, emotional by how amazing it is that, look, man, the poorest Mexican without even a fucking penny to their name has better medical access okay, than like I want to say 75% of Americans these days. Okay, I'm talking about dirt poor. I'm making $500 a month. I don't even have shoes. I have a dirt floor. I got bugs crawling on me when I'm sleeping. I got fucking better medical health care than someone in the USA, the richest country in the world. I mean, that's just there. That's just that part. Now let's just talk about like the freedom aspect. No way in hell would this ever happen. I mean, the cartel, maybe if you're in some fucked up shit, yeah, you'll be going through some fucked up shit, but otherwise, there's no threat, out here in Mexico or in most countries around the world of the things that they can do to you, like they do in the USA. The way the cops treat people, the way the cops treat U.S. citizens in the USA is fucking insane. It's fucking insane. It really is. And you don't even the only other places you see shit like this is like fucking Cuba, a communist country. It is nuts. And this happened to me, like, again, this is 9 years ago that this happened. This happened in 2017 because I moved here a year later, which was 2018. And yeah, man, it's just so nuts, man. It's just so nuts how many people out there, so like, again, when the whole thing with Trump, people are like, anyways, look, man, I knew when Trump got elected this time around, and before he got elected, I already knew he was going to bring law and order. And obviously, you guys have been in the USA the last several years. You know how things have gotten really crazy. But then again, you know me and you watch my channel already. You guys already know what's up. Everything happens for a reason, in the sense of like, everything is perfectly calculated. They will give you so they'll give you the problem so they can give you the solution. So the solution that they wanted to give you was more law and order, but they had to give you the problem first so that you could beg for that law and order. So I already knew this was coming. As the immigrants were flooding the USA, I already knew that the next president was going to bring the law and order. And sure enough, that's what he's done. And he hasn't brought it to the right people. So again, it's just more of like when 9/11 happened and they used that as an excuse, to pass the Patriot Act and do other things like that. The same thing. They used a lot of these problems in order to pass other things, to take away more and more of your rights. And I don't feel safe. I would never feel safe, going to the USA again. And look, in fact, at some point, I got to renew my passport and I got to go to I got to go to the U.S. Embassy, the U.S. Consulate in Mexico, here in my city. I got to go to the U.S. building in my city, and I'm scared of that. And everybody's telling me, bro, relax. You got nothing to worry about. You didn't do, what your situation is nothing. But I'm that scared and that paranoid of even going to get my fucking passport fucking renewed. That's how I got caught up in the system, and I was just so terrified of just being disappeared like that. And that can happen to anybody. Now, of course, it's a lot more difficult for them to disappear you if you got friends and family that care about you. But when you don't, it's a lot easier for them to disappear you. And many times, they just disappear you by just, hey, you want to be a drug addict on the streets? You're helping the system. You're a drug addict on the streets. They're able to, again, you're getting all the socialized medicine, all the socialized money. You're basically in the system. You're making the system work. You want to be a cog in the machine, meaning you want to work for a company like Walmart. Okay, great. You're in the machine. Okay, so again, you're going to be a bum drug addict on the street, work at a shit job where you get no rights, no nothing, or you go to jail. One of those. Because you're in jail, again, you're part of the system. You're making the system go, again, the prison industrial complex. So, yeah, it's just fucking terrible, bro. And sure, living in Mexico, we're in the almost a complete opposite end of when it comes to like justice and the law and things like that. But man, I would much rather be out here a million times over than in the USA. This real got real freedom out here. And I'd rather pay the consequences of living in real freedom than paying the consequences of living in tyranny, because you're constantly scared. That's why so many people have so much anxiety, have so much stress, all this stuff, because it's not just you got to make enough money to pay the things. It's not just about, you don't want to lose your job. It's not just about the stress of the people around you, the Karens, the what is it, like the bad drivers of this to that, like whatever. But you're always with that fear and that threat that at any moment, when you're least expected, pew, pew, for whatever reason, you're just driving, going to work, doing whatever, pew. Ever since we're kids in the United States, you're always trained. Again, your kids, remember, think about it. Your mom or dad are driving, and you're in the back, fucking around with your friends or your sister or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they tell you, hey, look, there's a cop over there. Sit down. Whatever. You're gonna get in trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble. You're gonna get that. It's always from the beginning, from a very small age, you're taught to be scared, terrified of the police, and to always have to listen to them no matter what they tell you to do, no matter how absurd it is, no matter how many rights they're violating. That's how they train you. That's how they train most Americans. And then when you go against that, when all of a sudden you start asking, for your rights as an American that we all have, that are right, they fought very hard for when they founded this country, right? All of a sudden when you try to exercise those rights, you're looked down upon. Everyone's on your case like, oh boy, of course they treated you like shit, Jose. Of course they did. How dare you? How dare you question why they were arresting you? How dare you not let them search your car? How dare you? I mean, if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't be afraid of anything. No, I mean, again, even if you're not doing anything wrong, you'll come across corrupt cops, again, even in the middle of nowhere like that, and they'll make your life miserable. They can plant shit on you. They can do all kinds. They thought they hit the jackpot with me. They're fucking idiots. You know. So, yeah, there's many things that they can do. We don't know this. Most people know this already. So it's like it's living in a different world, different on a different planet out there. It's like there's no freedom. There's no freedom at all, and it's just oh man, so sad, so sad. So yeah, retelling the story now, it does make me feel happy and good that I'm not as stressed telling the story like I used to tell the story. I'm so happy I've moved beyond that. I'm so happy, that was the catalyst. That was the beginning. Now, if it wasn't for that arrest, I would never be in Mexico, ever. So, yeah, man. It's like bittersweet because it's like I hate that happened to me, but I'm also very happy and glad that it did because otherwise I wouldn't have the amazing life that I have right now. If it wasn't for that event, if it wasn't for that moment, if it wasn't for all that struggle that I went through going through all that, everything that they did to me, even after I got released from jail, and I was able, to make this life for me, the life that I've always wanted in a sense. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it all worked out, but it did, and here we are. And man, you know what I mean? It is kind of crazy. And it is funny because every once in a while I'll go and check this area out of Childress, Texas. And again, like right now, we were just checking the area, and I think they had like a giant storm warning passing through. Oh yeah, I think it's gone. But yeah, who knows, man? They seem, okay. So this is where they shot the movie, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, so it's just supposed to show you the area. But yeah, like I said, it was even. Oh yeah, there looks severe storm. So I guess that was here a little while ago. Whatever. Anyway, so it's Texas. Who knows? Whatever. There's always severe storms out there. But yeah, it was just kind of crazy, man. I never thought in a million years that would happen to me, and then I would go through all that. And like I said, even after I got released and I went back to where I was in Vegas, and everything was just gone, gone. Because I had, I didn't have just stuff in my boat. I had things all over the place, and the only way that, like I said, the people that arrested me were the only ones that could have maybe ever possibly found all that stuff. And like I said, man, thank God that I had done a bunch of things beforehand. Sometimes you just do things, you don't know why you do them, and then the reason happens. But I had I had money, I had, savings. Again, you can watch my previous videos when I was living in Seattle and stuff like that. You can get more context on that. But I had money, and I wasn't stupid. I wasn't keeping it in cash. I know I wasn't keeping it in the bank either. So I had gold and silver, I had all kinds of shit. And at that time I was like, man, I can't just have this gold and silver everywhere like that. I gotta, and I was into crypto. That was the beginning of me getting really into crypto. And I was like, oh, okay, now I really understand crypto. So I was already at a process where I was already converting a lot of that gold and silver to crypto because I had to for reasons. And That's why they weren't. That's why they were not able to completely wipe me out, because most of my not most of it, a lot of my money was like in fucking the blockchain, whatever, and that's it. Yeah, but it's kind of crazy, but yeah, at the end of the day, it did wipe me out because eventually paying the lawyers, paying the fees to the Texas people, paying the bail, the bonds, all this shit, it wiped me out. I mean, basically, they ran me, I fucking diarrhea 30 grand, like, and that left me with just about nothing. Just enough money to get an apartment to live in. Sorry, not an apartment, a room to live in Los Angeles and get to work. That's all it left me with. So. And then, yeah, like I said, after a year of struggle, I really didn't have much of a choice. After all that, it was either, move to Mexico or they're gonna come get you and put you in jail because that's what they want. They want me in jail. They want me, and they want me in jail, or they want me constantly paying. But since I knew how to play the courts, I wasn't paying as much as they wanted me to pay. And so they're like, you know what? Fuck this guy. We get money from the state, because remember, that's how they get money from jail. So if they have me in prison and I'm there for a year in prison, they're getting paid for me being in prison. You know what I mean? So they get paid a lot of money. So to them, it's like they make more money from that. So they were just trying to, dude, they were just trying to give me a discount. Like, hey, you can pay cash. Hey, you can pay this amount. I was like, I don't have that amount. I have whatever. It's like, I was doing the bare minimum legally. Yeah, eventually they just had enough. They're like, no, man, what? Fuck you. You know what I mean? We're going to put you in jail so we can get your full value. I was like, bro, what the fuck country do I live in, bro? The hell? Look, man, the last thing I'm going to say is this for those that don't know. When the Civil War ended and slavery got abolished, it didn't. It did not. Okay. What was the 13th Amendment? Please read. Please read it. Okay. Basically, what up until the Civil War, slavery was only for black people, Indians, whatever, right? After the Civil War, when they amended the 13th Amendment, or what's that? When they added the 13th Amendment, what they did is that they said, okay, now everyone is a slave. Yeah. Let me repeat. Everyone. Everyone's a slave. It's in there. It's in the Constitution. It's in the Amendment 13. It's right there. Okay, read it. You're a slave. Okay. So but how do they get the money from you? Easy. Keep a job, collect taxes. They get the money that way. You already know if you're a wage slave, or you're gonna be a slave on the street to the drugs, to that lifestyle, whatever. Or we're gonna put you in fucking jail, and now you're technically really a slave according to the 13th Amendment. So yeah. It's fucking nuts, man. It really is. So, it's like Hudson James says, yeah, it's not like that. In Mexico last night, we went to a baseball game, and there was a lot of cops everywhere, just like they are in any game. And you were walking out with a beer, and no one said anything. Why would they? Why would they? Again, this is that's how it's supposed to be. That's a crazy thing. In the USA, we're so used to, probably getting put in jail for walking out with a beer. How dare you? You know what I mean? Like, no. What do you mean? Of course you're going to walk out with a fucking beer. All right? We're in a free country, right? Mexico's a free country, or like an actual free country. So, yeah, it's a free country. It's up to the cop to prove, you know what I mean, that you're, actually doing something really bad for them to do anything. And walking out with a beer out of a baseball game, that's not a crime. I mean, it might be a crime, but it's not a crime that is enforced, like many things. Now, if you come out of the baseball game like extremely, excruciatingly drunk, being a menace to society, have a beer in your hand. Okay, listen, man, even though still legally they really, they don't do much, they're going to do something, and they're going to now apply the law in that case. Because like, all right, man, come on, bro. There's kids here. There's families here. What are you doing? What are you doing? But if you're just a regular guy, walking out with a beer, what the fuck are they going to tell you to, why? They don't know if you're driving. You're probably walking away or biking or taking the, the bus or taking a, you know what I'm saying? In fact, on the bus, You know, I've seen people crack a beer and, you know, drink it. And sometimes with the bus driver be like, hey, no eating, no drinking. That's it. Not, you know, no, not like, hey, you're drinking beer on the,
Bruh.
you know. They get it. You know, you just got off of work. You're hot. You're sweaty. You know, you're working construction 10 hours. You know, you're drinking a beer in the bus. No one's going to say anything. Technically, it's illegal. And just don't be an, you know, don't be a or don't be an idiot and you'll be fine. Same thing with the game. Same thing with many things. So, oh, crap. I just saw the time. I got to get going. But anyways, yeah, man, you know, when it comes to like law and application of the law and just life in general out here, it's just like night and day. Night and day. And it's like, there's real freedom out here, 100%. And I love it out here. You know, again, man, you know, just you know, again, everything that just happened to me recently with the doctor, you know, with this and everything that's happened, you know, now retelling this story and really, you know, talking about my situation, you know, back in the USA, you know, it's a quick reminder. It's like, yeah, man, it's like, you know, I'm so happy, so grateful, so, you know, just happy to be here, man. Never going back unless I have to. Like, I have to be dragged back, literally. I have to be dragged, kicking and screaming to go back to the USA. Like 1,000,000%. It's not even a question. So, anyways, you know, it is what it is. So, whatever, guys. You know, with that said, you know, we're gonna get out of here because, like I said, I got things to do. I got plans. I'm super duper late. And you know, it is what it is. But hey, we made it. You know, we were here live today. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. You know, the live streams. You know, this channel is growing exponentially. I think I told you guys already in the last live stream and then in the last few videos that I'm moving. So we're gonna have a new house. I'm gonna be able to do cooking. So we're gonna jump on the cooking channel again, and we're still gonna be doing this because this is how I first started on YouTube, is doing things like this, kind of. Well, whatever, you know, cooking and this. But you know, so happy that I got an audience again. You know, you guys want to listen to some of these stories and you want to listen to my thoughts on things, and I'm so happy that you guys are happy on the other channel and just, you know, just happy in general. Life is awesome. You know, hey, I'm not in the USA. It's amazing. It's amazing. You know, I'm out here on paradise, for crying out loud. So, but anyways, with all that said, you already know, guys, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I got to get out of here because, like I said, I got dinner plans. I'm already running late. I got to shower. Got a lot of things to do. I stank and I'm tired. I'm exhausted. All right. So it's been a long day. If you want to know what the beginning of my day was, check out my other channel and check out what I was doing so you can see what's up and how, you know, I'm running on fumes here. But anyways, all right, guys. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. You already know the deal. Don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. I love you guys to death, and I'll see you guys here next Thursday. All right? Later, guys. Peace. Hey, guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another live stream. Back to another live stream. Back to another live stream.
Who is Jose Arteaga?
Jose Arteaga is a YouTube content creator with several channels focusing on different themes.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Thing sucks.
His main channels include travel vlogs and lifestyle content. On his travel channel, Jose Arteaga Travels.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Additionally, he runs a cooking channel and engages in other personal projects that highlight his diverse interests and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects, project, 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 projects, expertise, project, 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 project,
Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another live stream. Back to another live stream. Back
100 times?
to another live stream.
200 times?
Back,
500 times?
back, 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 back,
Jose Arteaga.
Jose Arteaga is a YouTube content creator with several channels focusing on different themes.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Thing sucks.
His main channels include travel vlogs and lifestyle content. On his travel channel, Jose Arteaga Travels.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers.
Additionally, he runs a cooking channel and engages in other personal projects that highlight his diverse interests and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects and expertise. Projects, project, projects, project, 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 project.